I want you to imagine something. It's 2020. You're watching a Trump rally. The crowd is going absolutely insane. And Trump is up there saying, China is robbing us blind. China is stealing your jobs. China is destroying your future. We are going to hit them with tariffs so hard they won't know what happened. We are going to put America first. We are never going to let China buy up American land, American companies, American anything. The crowd erupts, the hats go on, the signs go up. Now, fast forward to this week. Laura Ingraham, one of the loudest, most loyal voices in conservative media, went on television and could barely get the words out. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman who has defended this president through absolutely everything, posted that she is, quote, old enough to remember when MAGA was demanding China not be allowed to own any land in America. So what happened? Trump is apparently considering a deal that would allow China to invest $1 trillion in the United States. $1 trillion. In exchange for rolling back national security restrictions on Chinese business deals and offering tariff relief, the same tariffs that cost you $1,500 this year, for any Chinese factories built on American soil. The people who cheered the loudest for 4 years of trade war pain just found out what it might have been for. And I want to break down exactly what this deal is, exactly what it means for your money, and exactly why the people defending it on your television right now cannot give you a straight answer about any of it. Let me take you back because the context here is everything. Trump's entire economic identity for the last decade has been built on one central argument. China is the enemy. China cheats on trade. China manipulates its currency. China steals intellectual property, subsidizes its industries, floods American markets with cheap goods, and systematically dismantles American manufacturing while we sit here and let it happen. And the solution, the whole solution, the thing that justified every economic disruption, every price increase, every retaliatory tariff that hit American farmers and American manufacturers was simple. Hit China harder than they've ever been hit. Make it painful to do business with America. Bring the jobs back home. That was the deal. That was the contract with the base. The tariffs started in the first term. They escalated in the second. By 2026, the Trump tariffs represent the single largest American tax increase as a percentage of GDP since 1993. The Tax Foundation has calculated that the average American household is paying approximately $1,500 more per year because of them. Not $1,500 paid by China. $1,500 coming out of your pocket in higher prices on electronics, clothing, appliances, cars, anything with a supply chain that touches Chinese manufacturing. That $1,500 was the price of the promise that the pain was worth it, that China was being brought to heel, that American workers were going to win. Now, here's the deal on the table. Reports first emerged late last year that China had made a proposal, a significant one. China offered to dramatically ramp up investment in the United States in exchange for two things. One, the Trump administration rolls back national security restrictions on Chinese investment deals. The restrictions that currently limit what sectors of the American economy China can acquire stakes in, technology, infrastructure, energy, agriculture, communications, gone or significantly loosened. 2. Tariff relief for Chinese companies that build factories on American soil. Meaning, Chinese manufacturers set up operations in the U.S., and in return, they get exempted from the tariffs that were supposed to be punishing China in the first place. On paper, the headline sounds appealing. $1 trillion of Chinese investment into the American economy, jobs, construction, economic activity. But let's actually think about what this is. The tariffs cost American households $1,500 a year, for years. That money came out of consumers' wallets in the form of higher prices. It hit working-class families the hardest because they spend the highest percentage of their income on the goods most affected by tariffs: basic household products, clothing, consumer electronics. And now the potential exit ramp from those tariffs is, let China own more of America. The restrictions being discussed rolling back aren't minor bureaucratic annoyances. They're the guardrails that exist specifically to prevent foreign adversaries, and China is formally designated as a strategic competitor by the U.S. government, from gaining control over sensitive sectors of the American economy, the kind of control that creates leverage, the kind of leverage that makes it much harder to ever confront China on anything again, because now they own pieces of your grid, your ports, your farmland, your technology stack. That's the deal. That's what's on the table. And this is where it gets genuinely remarkable to watch. Laura Ingraham has been one of the most reliable defenders of Trump's trade agenda on television. Through every price increase, every retaliatory tariff, every time a soybean farmer or a small manufacturer said the trade war was killing them, Ingraham was there explaining why the pain was necessary, why China needed to be confronted, why Trump was the only one willing to do it. This week, she went on air and said the China deal reports are setting off alarm bells for her. She looked genuinely uncomfortable. The fluency was gone. When a host who has an answer for everything suddenly doesn't have one, pay attention to that. Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't hedge. Her post was blunt. I'm old enough to remember when MAGA was demanding China not be allowed to own any land in America. That's not a gentle concern raised in a committee hearing. That's a sitting congresswoman, one of the most visible MAGA figures in the country, publicly saying this is a betrayal. Steve Bannon, who has positioned himself as the keeper of the America First flame, has been vocal about the cracks forming around the China summit. For Bannon, the entire point of Trump was to decouple from China, not cut deals with them. The idea that the trade war ends with a $1 trillion Chinese investment welcome mat is the opposite of everything he built his brand around. And here's the thing about all of this. These aren't critics. These aren't Democrats. These aren't the mainstream media figures who have opposed Trump from day one. These are the people who were in the room, who built the movement, who told their audiences for years that the tariff pain was a down payment on a better future. When they don't have an answer, there isn't one. Now let's get to the part that actually matters for you personally, because there are real financial implications here that go in multiple directions, and most coverage isn't connecting the dots. First, the tariffs. If a deal is struck and tariffs are rolled back, the $1,500 annual cost on your household should theoretically come down. Prices on goods with Chinese supply chains, and that is an enormous category of what you buy, could decrease. That's a real tangible benefit for your spending power. But here's the trade-off nobody is pricing in. The price of that tariff relief is Chinese capital flowing into American infrastructure, technology, and potentially agriculture at a scale we've never seen. $1 trillion buys a lot of leverage. When China owns factories, distribution networks, and potentially stakes in American companies, they have tools to protect their position that they don't have when they're on the outside pushing in. Pricing pressure, supply chain dependency, political influence through the jobs and investment they control. You might save $1,500 a year on consumer goods. In exchange, the strategic architecture of the American economy shifts in ways that are much harder to quantify, but potentially much more expensive over the long term. Second, markets. The uncertainty around this deal is already creating volatility. If a comprehensive U.S. China agreement is reached, you'll likely see a short-term market rally. Trade war de-escalation is good for equities, at least initially. But if the deal collapses, or if it passes and triggers a political backlash that destabilizes the administration domestically, the downside scenarios are significant. Third, the midterms. This deal, combined with the Medicaid cuts in the big, beautiful bill, is creating something the Republican Party hasn't had to deal with in a while: ideological disillusionment among its own base. Only 29% of voters support the big, beautiful bill in recent polling. A trade reversal that looks like a betrayal of the core America First promise adds fuel to a fire that could flip the House in 2026. A Democratic House changes the entire landscape of fiscal policy, regulation, and market conditions going into 2027 and 2028. Your portfolio should be thinking about this now, not in panic mode, but with clear eyes. Here's the thing I keep coming back to. The tariffs were real. The pain was real. The $1,500 annual household cost was real. American farmers lost market access. American manufacturers paid more for inputs. American consumers paid more for everything, and the people defending that pain on television every night had a simple answer for why it was worth it. We are holding the line on China. We are winning. Trust the process. Now the process ends, potentially, with rolling out the red carpet for Chinese investment and relaxing the restrictions that exist specifically to protect American strategic interests. If you believe the argument for the tariffs, the logic demands you oppose this deal. Because the argument for the tariffs was never just about manufacturing jobs coming back. It was about not being dependent on a strategic adversary. It was about not letting them inside the walls. The deal on the table, if it's what it appears to be, lets them inside the walls and hands them the keys. And if you didn't believe the argument for the tariffs, if you thought the trade war was always more about political theater than genuine strategic decoupling, then this deal confirms that suspicion. Either way, the people who asked you to absorb $1,500 a year in higher prices owe you an explanation. So far, most of them are either silent or stammering. 3 things. Here's where your head should be. 1. Watch the deal details, not the deal announcement. If and when a U.S. China trade agreement is announced, the headline number will be enormous and impressive. What matters is what's being traded away to get it. Which sectors, which restrictions, which strategic assets. Read past the first paragraph. 2. Position for volatility either way. A deal announcement likely triggers a short-term market pop, especially in sectors that have been hurt by tariffs, like consumer discretionary, retail, and tech hardware. A deal collapse triggers the opposite. If you're not positioned for either outcome, you're not positioned. Have a plan for both. 3. Ask the question the hosts won't. If the tariff pain was worth it, what specifically did we get? If the answer is $1 trillion of Chinese money coming into American infrastructure, was that the goal? Was that what you voted for? Was that what the $1,500 annual household tax was buying? These aren't rhetorical questions. They're the questions any serious financial consumer of news should be demanding answers to before the next election, the next tariff announcement, the next trade war, the next promise that the pain is worth it. Because the pattern is always the same. The pain is certain. The payoff is vague. And by the time the deal is done, the people who cheered loudest on the way in have very little to say on the way out. $1 trillion, Chinese investment, the tariffs that cost you $1,500 a year, and Laura Ingraham, for maybe the first time in a decade, without a clean answer. That's the story this week. And it matters to your money more than most of what you'll see in your feed today. If this gave you something to actually think about, subscribe. I follow the money so you don't have to. Drop a comment. Tell me if you think the deal is worth it or if this is the betrayal of the decade. I want to hear both sides, and I'll see you in the next one.